Hello and welcome to my new polytunnel. I am so happy to have this here. It was put up at the start of August by the guys from First Tunnels and they did it in about 1.5 days. It's 45 feet long, 14 feet wide. It's got lovely strong poles and hoops and lovely crop bars and storm braces. Listen to this. Really nice tight polythene which is fastened to an aluminium base rail all the way down the bottom. The polythene extends out from the base rail at the moment about that much, a kind of skirt around the tunnel, and this I'm going to trench. I'm going to dig all the way around and bury it, because although the base rail is nice and level, the ground here is undulating, so there are gaps. Burying it will create an extra little bit of wall so that any compost I put down in these side beds won't fall out into the garden beyond and get washed away. It also will stop the weeds from the grass around the polytunnel from creeping in, and hopefully any little rodenty friends from creeping in as well. So that's a job for another day. I haven't been able to do that yet. It's all weighed down at the moment. When the polytunnel went up, the first thing I did was cover it completely with sheets of polythene that I brought with me from my old garden. Some of them are like 15 years old, these bits of polythene. You can see some down at the bottom there. And that was to stop the grass from growing until I could start mulching. Started mulching yesterday. The top bit here, I put down cardboard once I'd pulled back the polythene for the first 10 feet, which is 2 hoops worth. And put the top of the cardboard, I put about 8 centimetres of wood chip. I've got plenty of wood chip in the garden at the moment, and the reason I did that is I wanted an area here that was dry and protected from the weather for this winter, for making things for my new garden. So it's a practical space for getting things done. If I change my mind in the future, I can just rake it up and mulch. So it may be a permanent thing, it might be temporary, but for this winter I think it's going to be a real blessing to have this here. I've also got my washing lines up. That was the other one on either side. Polytunnel's brilliant for drying your laundry in. It's not very rock and roll, but oh my goodness, is it useful. So after I mulched this area, I put the sacks, as you can see, down the side of the polytunnel, and that is because of the gaps, and I'm not really making the side beds properly yet until the trenching's done. The side beds are going to be about 2.5 feet wide because the staging is 2.5 feet wide, so it makes sense to have the path running along the staging, and the paths are about the width of my feet, which is what works for me. Paths should be the width of whatever you want. There's no specific width that, you know, is the one to do. And then I've got this big main bed with no dig. You can walk all over your beds. It's not a problem at all, but you're not compacting it because the soil is really healthy and well structured. This is 10 centimetres or thereabouts of compost on top of cardboard, which has been overlapped to stop the grass coming through. Outside, I made the beds with cardboard on weedy grass and 5 centimetres of compost. The reason I've gone for twice as much in here is because outside it's raining, and in here I have to hand water. This will hold more moisture. It will not dry out so quickly. It's saving time, and it will be more beneficial for the plants in the circumstances that I'm in. I haven't got time to come in here and water every day. The path, though, it's about 3 or 4 centimetres of compost, so about 1.5 inches to 4 inches on the main bed. So here, this is one that I'm making at the moment. I'm doing it in kind of instalments, mainly because then you feel like you've achieved something, I find, if you just do things in bits. Otherwise it can be so overwhelming and you think, oh no, I've done all this work and I haven't actually achieved anything today. So raking out the compost and then doing the no dig dance to firm it. You want firm compost, not fluffy. If it's fluffy, the plants will just slide about and fall over. Once I've firmed it, I'll see how deep it is and then add more compost until it's 10 centimetres deep. Here, there's a bit of a dip, and that will need another sack of compost to go in. So that might end up 15 or more centimetres deep of compost, which is fine. It'll all be level. I knew I was going to have this polytunnel, so I budgeted for the compost. And I got the compost that I could get. It's organic, it's certified organic, and I know it's good stuff. So that's why I'm doing it this way. If you don't have much compost, what would you do? Well, in my previous garden, I was in that situation. I put a polytunnel up there 10 years ago, and I had some compost I'd made myself because I'd already lived there for a decade, but I didn't have enough to fill the whole polytunnel. So I took all the turf off with a spade and stacked it before the polytunnel went up. Not ideal. It made more weeds. It obviously disrupted the soil structure, but it was the thing that worked best for me at that time. It was affordable. It meant I could do it and I could grow. And things were fine. I had to do more weeding. I had to do more watering, but it got things going, and I was able to make more compost and mulch the beds, and it was great. I had that polytunnel for 10 years, and it was a thing of loveliness. If I had no compost and I didn't want to plant now, let's say I wanted to start planting in here in April, then I would have just left all the plastic sheeting down, and that would have killed off all the grass over the winter, could peel it back in the spring, hoe it, hand weed out anything that was still lurking, and off I go. Normally, by the way, I mulch the beds with about 2 centimetres, about an inch of compost a year in a polytunnel. So this is a one-off, all of this. It's not 10 centimetres every year. Could you imagine? It'd be up to the ceiling. If I had this polytunnel and it was full of weedy grass and I had no compost, and I've not made enough, and there's no compost here yet because I've only been here 5 months. There's loads of compost heaps, but nothing's ready. What would I do? Would I just let the weeds grow? No. If you've got that situation and you want to get growing, dig it and make your beds. It's a one-off thing. Yes, it's breaking up the soil structure. It's not ideal. It's going to create more weeds because you're bringing up the weed seeds. But if it's the difference between growing and producing food for your family or not growing, dig it once. Then you don't have to dig it anymore, and it can then be no dig, which is just fine. So there's many different ways of doing it. This is quite a big space, so it's using a lot of compost, but I am going to be able to grow a lot of food, which is just brilliant, and dry a lot of laundry, which of course is always nice.